PC builders, we've got a lot to talk about. Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. So originally this video, we were just gonna take our monthly look at RAM prices in January 2026, and we have some actually good news around that. But before we get to the good news, first we've gotta take a look at the drama about the RTX 5070 Ti being canceled, but maybe then not canceled after all, according to NVIDIA and ASUS. We're gonna break it all down, and I'm gonna give you my advice if you're looking to build or upgrade your PC in 2026. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. So quick recap on the drama. It all starts with this video here that Hardware Unboxed published yesterday. They summarize it here in their pinned comment because there's been a lot of development since. They basically went out to the AIBs and said, hey, we want to do a 5070 Ti roundup. Can you send us your latest product samples? We're going to do one for 2026. And they weren't getting any back. So they reached out to ASUS and said, what's going on? The ASUS PR rep, and I'm assuming it's in the Australian region because that's where they're based in. They're not based in the US like I am. They went ahead and they said, hey, it looks like they're all end of life because of constraints right now, production constraints. They asked ASUS to clarify this. Are you sure about that? The ASUS rep said, yes, that's correct. Then they reached out to various retailers and they found out, yeah, looks like 5070 Ti supply is super tight right now and it's hard for retailers to get it. Based on all that, they went on record, and I'll leave their video link down in the video description. You should watch it, kind of get their side of the story on all of this. But basically, within a couple of hours of that hitting, now that just hit the internet like wildfire, like absolute wildfire. We'll go into some of the fallout from that in just a moment. NVIDIA released a statement pretty quickly. Demand for GeForce RTX GPUs is strong. NVIDIA said that they won't discontinue the RTX 5070 Ti. Now let's just read what they said. Demand for GeForce RTX GPUs is strong and memory supply is constrained. We all know that part. We continue to ship all GeForce SKUs, that's individual models, and are working closely with our suppliers to maximize memory availability. That was their statement. Pretty straight to the point. It also doesn't give a lot of detail on it. And then ASUS released their own statement later to walk everything back, including what their rep had said. Let's just take a look at their statement. To clarify recent reports regarding the ASUS GeForce RTX 5070 Ti and RTX 5060 Ti 16GB, because those are the two GPUs that kind of headline this. Really, the 5070 Ti is the one that I think most people got up in arms about. We'd like to clarify recent reports regarding the ASUS RTX 5070 Ti and 5060 Ti 16GB. Certain media outlets, well, obviously that's Hardware Unboxed, may have received incomplete information from an ASUS PR rep. Are you taking responsibility? You're throwing them under the bus? I'll let you decide on that one. And they go on to say that they have not been discontinued or designated as end of life. They have no plans to stop selling these models. And then they go on to say, current fluctuations in supply for both products are primarily due to memory supply constraints, which have temporarily affected production output and restocking cycles. So making it sound like, hey, just a temporary thing, it'll be back. As a result, availability may appear limited in certain markets, but this should not be interpreted as a production halt or product retirement. They're going to continue to support those products and are working closely with their partners to stabilize supply as conditions improve. So that's basically where we're at right now. So what's the immediate fallout of that video and everything that's going on, whether it's canceled or it's not canceled? I'll leave that up to you, but you can see literally every 5070 Ti, like in the United States, seemed to sell out yesterday within hours. Now you could still pick one up at the beginning of yesterday before that video went live for about $840, $850. They had gone up in price. We went over this in our best GPU video, but you can see now, I mean, here's one for $1,000. That's a regular 5070 for $639. But they are all sold out except for this one for $925, which is crazy, right? $925. Even that one, it's weeks. It's basically a month away from delivery at $925. If we go over to Newegg really quickly, and this is just looking at sold and shipped by Newegg, everything's out of stock. Everything is out of stock. Some of these were in stock yesterday, and they're all gone at this point, except for this one for $1,039. And this is PNY. This is typically a more value-oriented brand than like ASUS or somebody else. And if we go over here and we just see, because Newegg also has third-party sellers, and some of the brands sell their own GPUs under their, especially Zotac, that doesn't really help. The cheapest was over $1,000. Everything else is $1,100 or higher for a 5070 Ti, not a 5080, 5070 Ti. And even the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte didn't kind of escape the wrath. All the 429 ones that were left at PNY and others, all gone. And even this at $449 right here, $20 over MSRP. Look at that. It's basically a 1 month delivery time at this point. That means that they're selling through pretty quickly. It seems like a massive amount of panic buying going on for RTX 50 series GPUs, the 5070 Ti and 5060 Ti. Already left to wonder, why didn't folks buy one during Black Friday when they were cheap, when they were a lot cheaper than this? But it seems like we've got a lot of panic buying going on right now. Now, obviously, a lot of people think this is AMD's big opportunity to take GPU market share from NVIDIA, who controls a huge amount of the current GPU market, and finally break that stranglehold, as long as they keep their prices somewhat in check. We know VRAM prices are going up, but we're hoping that they will really take this as an opportunity to grab market share. And AMD promised to do kind of just that. But this was an interview from Gizmodo published they did this during CES, they just published it. David McAfee had this to say: "We have very strategic partnerships over many, many years with all the DRAM manufacturers to make sure that both the amount of supply that we need and the economics of what we're able to buy from them are what we can support in our graphics business." They did admit that they can't predict the future, but they were trying to work with AIBs basically to maintain close prices to what AMD suggests, which is the MSRP on the cards. Let's check in and see how they're doing on that right now. I noted in our GPU market update video that it looked like the RX 9070 XT was going to go from a $599 MSRP to essentially $699 based on where some of those models were coming in. It looks like that's what's happening. So the MSRP models are now $699, I'll note, and they go up from there basically. Over to the RTX 9070, it only seems like a $20 price increase, so some discount there. Possibly they're seeing that this was already discounted. Remember, for Black Friday, we saw these go all the way down to about $510. Possibly they're kind of adjusting it in there. $579, not terrible. It does create some separation between the two GPUs as well. Not the kind of separation we want, obviously. And then if you look at the 9060 XT, 16 gigabyte, we basically see the same thing. The MSRP models, the Power Color Reaper and the ASRock Challenger, now at $399. So they basically jumped up $50. I just want to slip this poll in here. I asked all of you what your thoughts were on this when the news broke yesterday. Obviously before NVIDIA and ASUS came out with their statements kind of countering it. But would you buy an NVIDIA GPU given recent news? And just over half of you said, hey, I'm mad at NVIDIA, but if they got the best product, I'm just going to buy it. Now, 1/3 of you said, I'm done with NVIDIA. I will never buy from NVIDIA again. That is a little shocking. So maybe there is actually a consumer impact. Of course, they make most of the money in AI these days. So what do they care if half their gamers leave them, right? 9% said they're fine with NVIDIA. You're going to buy their products in the future. You just kind of don't care what they're doing. 5% say I only buy NVIDIA. I do want to say that number has changed drastically. I started doing this poll during the great GPU shortage back in 2021 or 2020 or something like that. And I will say 36%, that number sticks in my head, like 36 to 40%, just under 40%, said they would only ever buy NVIDIA graphics cards. So that, to me, does show that not only consumer behavior changes, but also AMD catching up has probably added some things, maybe even Intel into the mix, has drastically reduced that number from like 30 to 36% down to 5%. All right, let's jump into RAM prices now. And initially you're going to look at this and say, Jason, I thought you had good news. What is this news you're showing me here? This does not look good. What is this? This is the PC part picker aggregate kind of tracking information and price information for DDR5 6000. This is a 2x16 gigabyte kit. So this is the RAM that we used to buy, I should say, for about $100-ish for quite a while. And you can see that that price had been stable for a long time, a little bit of bump up in the middle of last year. And then all of a sudden we had the rocket ship ride to the moon, basically, as RAM prices just completely exploded. Then in December, when we took a look at RAM prices, I was saying we were like right here at the end. And I was saying, hey, it looks like maybe RAM prices are flattening out. So you're like, Jason, well, obviously they didn't flatten out. Look what happened. But we're going to go through this in just a second because I don't actually see this in the retail kits that I'm looking at. I think what's going on here might be restocks of kits. And as they're restocking some of these kits, they're going at much higher prices and then they're floating back down. And that's basically in aggregate kind of dragging a lot of the data up. And let's take a look at some individual kits. Let's start off with DDR5 6000 CL30s. It's kind of like the premium stuff, right? The good stuff out there. And this is what we always used to recommend because you actually couldn't get worse RAM and save money because this stuff was often cheaper. That's not the case anymore, but let's start off with DDR5 6000 CL30. This is looking at it last month, our last month RAM video. At the end, right after Christmas, we wanted to see where prices were. You can see basically $330 up to $400, kind of a wide range for DDR5 6000 CL30. Let's take a look at Newegg right now. This is Newegg right now I'm looking at. Actually $5 cheaper. I mean, that's kind of nice to see. It's still $325. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's getting so much cheaper. No, it's not. It's basically where it was last month. You can scroll down and there's actually more kits now, it seems, available for around that, $400 down to $330 price range, including some that I'm not that familiar with in King Bank. I think this is actually a Chinese manufacturer. So it is maybe good to see some more RAM kits come into the market there, but basically we're at the same pricing. Then jumping into just any DDR5 32 gigabyte kit, so 2x16 gigabyte kit out there. Last month we found at Best Buy you could still buy some Crucial stuff. LOL Crucial, I know, rip, but they're selling off some of their RAM for discounted pricing at $292. That's not a discount, I know, but it's cheaper than you can find other things. And then for the rest of the kits we were finding basically even G-Skill stuff you could still find because pricing hadn't adjusted everywhere, down to $330 and then basically up from there. No real discount basically for getting better timing or worse timing kits, I should say, except that you could get the more name brand stuff like G-Skill. So let's take a look at where we're at now. In fact, this kit is still available over at Best Buy. You can buy it right now. It's shipped to your door. It's 6400 CL38, same as 6000 CL36. So if you want this and you want the cheapest out there, this is it right now. I'll link this down in the video description. Then we jump over to Newegg, and again, just basically any acceptable kits. One thing you'll notice is that the more name brand stuff has gone away at that price. In fact, what's the cheapest like G-Skill kit that we can find here as we just scroll down? This flare kit at $374. So basically name brand stuff has gone up about $50, but good news is there's a lot more supply of what you would typically consider more value-oriented brands like V-Color and Patriot. And you can find those, and even King Bank now is starting to sell here through Newegg. And you can find those starting at right around $320. Obviously, there's also that Crucial kit as well. But let's check in on those combo deals at Newegg because those were absolutely insane last month when we looked at them. So here's one with the ASUS ROG Strix X870E-H. That's a super high-end motherboard. That's what they're doing. They're taking super high-end motherboards and giving you an insane discount on it. And then you get the RAM. And when you add that up, right here, the $259 for the motherboard, you take that away from the $469, you basically get the RAM for about $200. So let's check in and see where we're at right now with these. But if we look at this one right here, this is $459. You get the ASUS ROG Strix X870-A, really high-end motherboard. That's a $279 motherboard. So you take $279 away from $459, what is that? $180 for the RAM kit. So actually the RAM kits are now cheaper, but that actually seems like RAM is getting a little bit better. And then just looking at some 16 gigabyte RAM combos, DDR5 with motherboards here at Newegg again, they're actually pretty crazy, like $229 with a full-on motherboard. So you're getting the RAM for basically like, what is that, $80? I mean, help me do the math out there. This kit, for instance, you're getting it with the MSI Pro B850 S Wi-Fi 6E, $150 motherboard is what they're saying the price is. It's about right. $249 for the kit, but look, $229 is what you get it for. So if you take that away, it's basically like $80 for the RAM. That's kind of crazy. It's not quite where it was obviously before the RAM crisis started, but it's not crazy anymore. And then if we look at just 16 gigabyte DDR5 kits out there, last month they were like $210 to $230. I'm actually seeing some cheaper kits right now, including this Team Group kit here. It's got a $50 promo code on, so you you can get it for like, what is that, $179? Why would you get it for $179 when, although that's not a bad price, bad in air quotes, get it with the free motherboard instead? That's a bigger discount, right? All right, let's take a look at DDR4 prices, because I know a lot of people were excited about AMD possibly reintroducing the 5800X 3D as a way to either upgrade an existing system or do a brand new build with essentially Ryzen 7600X kind of style of power out there. Last month, we saw DDR4 32GB kits anywhere from $169 up to $200. And then for 16GB kits, we saw roughly around the $100, slightly over the $100 mark. Let's see what we got now. Basically, here's Newegg. It's kind of unchanged. It's $169 up to about $200-ish. Maybe some of the kits are $5 more expensive. And then as we look at 16GB kits, this is where I think things are stinging a little bit more, because it does seem like we've gone up about $10 on some of these kits. Although I do see some of these G-Skill Ripjaw kits that weren't there before are coming back into stock now. And then of course, the other big thing was the big discounts on DDR4 combos with motherboards. I'm not seeing the good combos like we saw last month. I tend to think that those motherboards were just sitting around collecting dust. So they just basically bundled them up and shipped them off. And now what we have left are the boards that they have been producing, the more budget tier motherboards. You can get the memory for $170 and the motherboard's only worth $100. You're really not getting that big of a discount. So let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, let's take a second and just acknowledge we are not in the RAM apocalypse that we thought we were going to be when it was November. We didn't see $1,000, or haven't seen at least $1,000 DDR5 kits, 32GB kits. We haven't seen them completely sell out like the GPU apocalypse that we had a couple of years ago. Remember, 3060 was $1,000. You had to buy it off eBay because you couldn't buy it from retail because scalpers had them all. So we're just not in that scenario at all. I'm not saying it's good. Don't put those words in my mouth. I'm not saying it's good. I just want to acknowledge that it's not the end of the world scenario that we thought it was. There's been a lot of doomerism. So, well, very justified, by the way, very justified, because of the rapid increase in prices and everything that's going on. And whatever happens behind the scenes with the RTX 5070 Ti situation, until we see the restock situation in February, March, we are probably not going to know what kind of stock to expect. Is it canceled? Is it not canceled? Obviously, don't go out and buy a $1,200 RTX 5070 Ti. Now, if you are building or upgrading right now and you need a GPU at that level, grab an RX 9070 XT. Now, I know it's scary out there, but if you're building a PC now, I think we all just need to take a deep breath, get one of those Newegg RAM combos, get a Radeon GPU, and listen, your total build cost is not going to be that far off from what we were seeing through much of 2025. Now, will that be the case in the future? It's hard to say, but at least right now, the rumors of the death of PC gaming seems kind of premature. So if you want to build right now, go for it. Give this video a like if you got value at it. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. You can either check out our look at the GPU market right here, check out what we were thinking about the GPU market even before all this crazy pricing, or go ahead and check out PC parts to avoid in 2026. Don't wreck your PC build with these PC parts, and we'll catch you on the next one.